everyone, it's Lou Collins. Now I'm really fortunate that I've been offered these gorgeous Creative Expressions stamps, papers, and there are some stencils as well to have a play with. Now these are from the Tailor-Made Journals range. We've got them all available at CraftStash. They're absolutely beautiful. Now I thought I would have a go at making my own ephemera. Now I'm always grabbing ephemera packs for quick and easy toppers and embellishments for my cards, for my scrapbook pages, and for my art journals as well. I really love the vintage theme with these, so I thought they would make some beautiful tickets and other ephemera, and I'm going to show you how I would go about doing that. So the first thing I do is grab some materials. Now I have got some watercolor cardstock, some craft cardstock, some vellum and parchment. This is some tissue paper, just white tissue paper. This actually came from a Papercraft Society box. And then I've also got some acetate, but not only just acetate, this is actually heat resistant acetate, which is really important for the type of embellishments that I'd like to create. So the first thing I tend to do is go ahead and stamp everything. So I've got all these beautiful tickets, backgrounds, stamp lots onto each and every one of the materials. So let's start with the heat resistant acetate. Now, because this is acetate, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use the heat resistant element of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is simple stamping onto acetate. Now to do that, you're going to need to use a solvent ink, and I've got my StazOn here. So I'm going to load up my stamping platform with lots of stamps, as many as I can fit onto the A5 size, and then stamp in the black StazOn. So I'm just going to let that dry now, put that aside because it stays on. It will dry on its own, it won't take too long. And there's going to be, once I've cut them out, my first set of ephemera. Now we've got our black overlays. I'd also like some white ones too. So I'm going to use the acetate again. And this time I'm not going to worry with using StazOn or a solvent ink. I'm just going to go straight in with my VersaFine. Maybe you've got Memento inks, whatever it may be. I do like a nice detail ink here though. So I'm going to go all over my stamps. I've left a couple on from before because I really like them and I'd like more ephemera in those designs. That's the top two there. And then I'm going to pop this onto my acetate. Now sometimes you may find with stamping platforms going onto acetate, because everything sticks, sometimes once you've positioned it, it's actually just as well to remove your magnets, allow the acetate to lift up, and then give it a little bit of a press from this side too. There we go. So I've got my impression on my acetate. Now I'm going to use a white embossing powder. You could use white, you could use gold, whichever colour you want. And then I'm going to heat this powder in the same way as I would as if I'd heat embossed onto cardstock. Just ensure you are definitely using heat resistant acetate. So there's my black and white ephemera that's ready to be fussy cut out, but let's get some more together first. So the next batch of ephemera that I'm going to make is on craft cardstock, and I'm going to do a technique that I love to do, whether it's on paper or on craft. And I'm actually going to do this on both craft and watercolor cardstock. So the first thing I'm going to do is, with my chosen stamps, I've just got a complete selection here again from the Ford stamp sets, I'm going to put a brown distress ink. Now you can do this with Distress Oxide, but I do find it works better with an ink. And obviously stamping with distress ink, because it's a dye ink, it doesn't hold brilliantly on the stamp. Sometimes you get some pooling, but it's absolutely perfect for the technique that we're doing today. So just covering over the stamps with the ink there, and then I'm going to spritz some water onto my craft cardstock. Just let that soak in for a few seconds and close my stamps. Now I'm going to hold these down into the wet cardstock for probably about 20 to 30 seconds maybe. Sometimes you can see that you don't need as long as that, and sometimes you actually need longer. Sometimes you need to apply more ink. The best thing to do is, if you're in a stamping platform where you can reposition or rather re-ink and then stamp again, is just keep checking it. Now let's have a lift up and see what that looks like. There we go, perfect. Now that's quite clear, so I'm going to actually spritz this a little bit more And you'll notice what happens is you kind of get this wicking of the ink, this bleeding of the ink, and that's what we want to happen. So I'm now going to completely allow that all to air dry. Now it's really important that while that's drying, you can use a heat tool, by the way, if you wanted to, that you keep your cardstock and your stamps in exactly the same place. Now, because as this is dry, this is curled up, I'm just being really careful to make sure that will go flat when I do the next layer, and that's going to be with a black ink. So I'm using now just VersaFine, and again, make sure your cardstock is, or your paper is really dry. And I'm going to ink up all the stamps again, and then carefully just ensure that this folds over exactly the same place as it was before, and stamp those. Lifting up, and you can see there we've got a lovely vintage look. Now around here I'd like a little more detail. I'm not so worried about this one here. There is some more ink that I could put on there, but I'm not fussed about it. I just want to be able to really see these words in this last stamp here. That's much better. Now, as I said, I'm going to do exactly the same with some watercolor cardstock as well. Now again, using the Distress ink, I'm going to create myself a tissue paper background, and this can be used torn into just really subtle in the background. So I'm going to stamp one of the text elements, and I'm just going to alternate the direction that it's stamped in all over the paper. So I'll pop this one here. I could even add in extra elements, which I might do. So do these first of all. This I'm going to snip into sheets that are more manageable, so around about 4 by 4 inches. Lastly, I'm going to take a die set that's got some tags and tabs in it, and I'm going to cut some of these as well. Now, some of these will be full tags, some of these will have apertures in them with this sort of shape here, but I'm going to cut them all from the beautiful patterned paper that we have here and really mix it up. But I'm going to stick with that sort of vintage feel. So they've got a range of tags and tabs all created from that pattern paper pack. I've still got loads of papers. This was 2 sheets, 2 8x8 sheets, and I can create a lot more. Now all I'm going to do is take all my other pieces that I've created here with the stamps, and I'm going to fussy cut all of these out. Now everything's cut out. Look at this fantastic range of ephemera that I've got that I can use on my junk journals, my scrapbook pages, my art journals, my cards, whatever it may be. And of course you don't have to go with the vintage theme. As long as you've got some stamps and some simple dies like some labels and tags, you can be making these as well. Now I'm going to show you how I would put together an art journal page using these. So the first thing I would do is lay down some colour in the background. Usually for me this would be a wash of watercolour. I'm actually going to use some Distress Oxides. I love Forest Moss. This is a nice vintage colour, and I think I'm going to team that with a yellow, so something like Wild Honey in the Distress Oxide range as well. So I'll put some of this onto some acetate here, or this is actually a blending mat from CraftStash. Spritz a little water onto both my paper and my acetate, turn that over, and just do a few dabs of this to start laying a bit of colour down. I don't want too much. There we go, that's perfect. Now you're never going to get this precise, accurate, or the same each time you do it, so just go with the unpredictability of it. Now I'm going to allow that to dry. Now for some background texture, I'm going to take one of my tissue paper pieces and I'm going to glue that into the background just there. Now with this, obviously you're going to get that slight faded effect through the tissue paper, but that's fine, we don't mind that. And actually sometimes when gluing this, it can actually make it a little more transparent or opaque anyway. So I'm going to water down some wet glue. This is my usual sort of bookbinding paper glue that I use. So a bit on acrylic block there, a few squirts of water, and I'm just going to mix the two together with a clean paintbrush. And I'm going to brush all over the surface of the tissue paper here, making sure I'm going on the reverse. I'm going to adhere that to the back there, and then I'm going to use the glue through the tissue just to make sure that that's adhered all the way around the edges in particular. Now you may find where you've used the water-based glues or inks, sorry, that does have an effect on those, but I quite like the look of the tissue paper here, just sort of scrunching up in places. I love how you never know exactly what you're going to get with an art journal, and that's the reason we do them, to test out different techniques. Now what I really love about the acetate pieces is that when you place them over, you can still see everything underneath. So they look like you've stamped them on, but you've got that kind of that flexibility and confidence that you can check and see what they look like before you actually adhere them. So I'm probably going to do these in a little while. What I want to have in the background is a tag. This one's a little bit large, so I'm actually going to tear it in half, like so, and I may use that just like so. What I tend to do is build up a cluster. Let's make this even smaller actually. So that will go on the edge there. I may then use something like one of these tabs here also. I'd like to use one of these tags too. Might change up the colour. Look, we've got a nice bright colour there. That will be better because that will really stand out. And that's the beauty of these papers, is that you do have them as double-sided pieces. So they could go like that. And I'm just going to play around really with layering everything up at the moment. With all my art journal pages, even if it's just experimenting with ephemera as I am here, I like to add a focal point, and today, because I want to go with black and white so that the few colours of the ephemera and the background show through, I'm going to use a photo of my dog. So I've just printed this off on my printer at home. I'm going to glue this down kind of over the top, so like I say, this will be my focal point. There we go, and that's how I put an art journal page or junk journal together. So there's how I also make all my ephemera. As you can see, I've got absolutely loads and loads left as well. And sometimes if you just don't have the mojo or the ideas for actually creating a project, sometimes just creating some ephemera is a really nice way of doing something creative without the pressure of a finished project. So you'll find everything that I've used available in this link in the corner here and in the description below. This is the new Creative Expressions tailor-made journals elements. Please do subscribe to our CraftStash channel just here, and we think you'll also love this video just here. Take care everybody, and see you soon.